going on, Javier Lobby? It's your boy Javier with the Javier Show. Make sure you say it twice. All right, so this story about AOC. Family turned down $100,000. And plenty of you have probably heard the story. If you're not familiar with it, I'll run through it real quick. AOC decided to exploit her grandma who's living in Puerto Rico at the moment, who's having some ceiling problems or some living conditions that are not suitable. And AOC decides to use this as a way to criticize Donald Trump's policies when dealing with Puerto Rico. Now, we already know that Donald Trump is no longer in office. Joe Biden is currently there at the moment. But I've heard a lot of people give their takes on this particular situation. So, with that being said, Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire, and many of you probably already know Ben Shapiro and them, they decided to go start a GoFundMe. And they wanted to raise funds in order to help AOC's grandmother. Now, I've heard people criticize the conservatives saying this is just some attack on AOC. Y'all don't really want to help her grandmother. This is just a publicity stunt. Blase, all of that, right? I don't really want to focus on that. You've heard that. Everybody talks about how AOC just bought a Tesla, a brand new Tesla, and she could have helped her grandmother if she wanted to. This is something that I want to focus on because somebody's probably not talking about this. It has to do with politicians explicitly using their family members or people that they've come across and know personally as a way to score points politically. Now, you all know when the presidents or when people run for office for Congress or mayor or you know the spiel, all the politicians at some point in their career does this. They will say, oh, well, I just met this young lady and she can't pay for college, or I just met this young woman who had to get an abortion and she was terrified, but she knew she had to make a tough choice. Or my father was in the military and he served over here and did this and did great things and we want to take care of the vets. There are always these talking points that politicians use as a way to score points politically because they know they tell you a story that you can relate to, that you will have an emotional appeal to what they're saying to you. Now, the problem we have with this is policies, laws, legislation, all of those things should not be an emotional decision. When any politician is trying to activate your emotional stimuli in order to get a certain rise out of you, they're trying to control you. They're trying to use these tactics as a way to convince you of a position that you have not logically thought through. Now, most people already currently hold certain positions before they actually go support a candidate. They usually look for the candidates that are saying the things that they want to hear, saying the things that they actually want to get accomplished. But how many times do people actually change their vote? How many times do people actually switch their position on a particular subject because somebody hit them in an emotional position in their heart and they decided to change something about themselves? We've seen it throughout history. What did Hitler do in Nazi Germany? He appealed to something, people's anger of being poor or seeing that the Jews were living better than they were at the time, or that they were suffering under the Western civilizations who had won the war and they was taxing them and making them pay back all of these fees due to World War I. All of these things that these politicians, leaders, kings, queens do is to control you emotionally. Now, there's nothing wrong with emotions. We have fear, we have happiness, we have love, we have all of these different emotions that make up us as a human being. And if you understand how human beings operate, you know what strings to pull in order to convince somebody to do what you want them to do, regardless of logic, regardless of being rational. Now, I'm not saying that logic and ration is always the right way to go. We need emotions. We need to be able to relate to our wives and our husbands and our moms and dads, sisters, brothers, cousins, you name it. Right? Excuse me. But we have to point out something very crucial here. If politicians keep using this same line of reasoning, like AOC with her grandmother, or look at how my grandmother is living. My grandmother who lives in Puerto Rico, even though I personally have enough money to help her, I am going to use this as a way to hit you emotionally, to make you angry at the person I want you to direct your anger towards, or for you to vote for me, or for you to support something that I'm trying to support. All of these things, when she can just simply point out her argument and try to use logic and reason to make a valid argument that people can resonate with. But it's more personal when they bring in family members. It's more personal when they use stories of people who are actually suffering and going through things in America to somehow pull at your heartstrings. It's BS. Now, we all know that it's a very useful tactic, but I'm talking to you because I'm not here to try to sell you anything. I'm not here to try to convince you that you should throw emotions out of the window and only think logically when it comes to policies. Yeah, there are some times that you need those emotions to get you to do the right thing, even though it may personally not be in your favor. That's okay. But sometimes you can go too far on one side and it will completely ruin everything that you're trying to accomplish. Because policies can't be made based off of emotions. Because it's always a trade-off in our society. You might think that you're helping one person and you might be hurting another person that you didn't think about or consider. A lot of these things are so complicated, people are so complicated, that you can't somehow boil everything down to this simple agenda that fits everybody's needs. It just doesn't work that way. So that's why they appeal to your emotions. Now, the reason I said that I'm talking to you about this is because I assume that at some point you're smart enough to know for yourself that politicians are trying to duke you. Politicians lie all the time. They play all these silly games. They use semantics, all of these different tactics and tools to try to win an argument, even though they might not have the facts or the evidence to support what they're actually saying. And we've seen this a lot. And the right does it, the left does it, everybody does it. We do it in our own personal lives and our personal relationships. Now, to wrap this up in a bow, if you made it this far, don't let your emotions get the best of you when it comes to politics. AOC and them turned down that $100,000 because it really wasn't about helping her grandma. It was about making a political statement to score points. That's simple as it is. Do I know AOC's heart? Of course I don't. But I can judge her by her actions. I can judge her by the things that she says and does. And time after time again, I really honestly believe that AOC agenda comes before anything else. And she will use and employ anything in her arsenal to actually accomplish that goal. Well, with that being said, tell me your thoughts. Would you have taken the $100,000? Would you have donated it and helped her grandma? Did you donate it? Were you one of the people that actually was willing to put your hard-earned money up to help this lady that you don't even know in Puerto Rico? Was the conservatives just playing a political game and trying to take advantage of her? Tell me what your thoughts are on all of this. Now, before you go, like, subscribe, and share. That's all you got to do is hit that bell below. You get notified of all my future videos. Thank y'all so much for watching. As always, peace and glory.
1 in a million to one villain. Too hot to be in the kitchen. I'll end up melting the ceiling.